Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and watched the stars ahead grow brighter. 3 months of travel through deep space had brought them to this moment. The ship's computers showed they were close to the Kepler 442 system, where alien signals had been detected 6 months ago. "Captain, we're picking up the signals again," said Ben Carter from his station. A young communications officer had been tracking the alien messages for weeks. "They're getting stronger, much stronger." Jake nodded and walked over to look at Ben's screen. The patterns were unlike anything humans had seen before. Not random noise from space, but clear signs of intelligent life. After 300 years of searching, humanity had finally found someone else among the stars. "Any luck understanding what they're saying?" Jake asked. Ben shook his head. "Not yet, sir. But the computer is learning. Each signal teaches us more. About their language. We should be able to talk to them soon." Dr. Lisa Hayes looked up from her workstation. The ship's xenobiologist had been studying every piece of data they collected about the aliens. Her job was to understand what kind of life they might find. "Captain, the bioscans are interesting. These beings seem to have very low stress markers in their communications. Much lower than humans." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "They might be a very peaceful species," Lisa said. "Their brain patterns show almost no signs of aggression or fear. It's quite remarkable." Jake felt a mixture of excitement and worry. Humanity had always wondered what would happen when they met aliens. Would they be friendly? Would they be hostile? The scientists back on Earth had prepared for both possibilities. The ship's AI spoke in its calm, mechanical voice. "Captain, we are now entering the outer edge of the Kepler 442 system. Sensors detect multiple artificial structures around the fourth planet." Jake looked at the main screen as it showed what the sensors had found. Massive space stations orbited a blue-green world. Ships moved between the stations in perfect formation. Everything looked organized and peaceful. "They've been watching us," Ben said suddenly. "I'm getting direct signals aimed at our ship. They know we're here." Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was it. First contact with an alien species. He had trained for this moment his whole life, but now that it was happening, he felt nervous. "Put me on the main channel," Jake ordered. "Send the standard first contact message." Ben worked at his controls. "Channel open, Captain." Jake cleared his throat and spoke the words that had been used by human explorers for centuries. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship among the stars. We hope to learn about your people and share what we know about ours." They waited. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Everyone knew that the next few minutes would change human history forever. "Captain," Ben said, excitedly, "I'm getting a response. The computer is translating it now." A new voice came through the speakers. It was soft and musical, unlike any human voice. "Welcome, travelers from the star you call Sol. I am Disse, voice of the Zephyrian Coalition. We have been aware of your approach and are pleased to meet you. We too seek knowledge and friendship." Jake smiled. The aliens were friendly. This was better than humanity's best hopes. "We would like to meet with you," Jake said. "Perhaps we could visit your world, or you could visit our ship." "We would be honored," Veziskar replied. "We will send a delegation to your vessel. We are curious about your species and your culture." Over the next few hours, the crew of Horizon's Edge prepared for the most important meeting in human history. They cleaned the ship, prepared gifts of human art and music, and practiced the protocols they had learned for alien contact. The alien ship that approached was beautiful. It looked like it was grown rather than built, with smooth curves and a surface that seemed to shimmer with different colors. It moved without any visible engines, gliding through space like a fish through water. "They're docking with us now," Ben reported. "The airlock is connecting." Jake straightened his uniform and walked toward the airlock. Lisa and Ben followed him, along with 2 security officers. The security team was there just in case, but Jake hoped they wouldn't be needed. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. The aliens who walked through were unlike anything humans had imagined. They were tall and thin, with skin that changed color slightly as they moved. Their eyes were large and kind, and they moved with a grace that seemed almost like dancing. Daiziska stepped forward. When the alien spoke, a small device on its chest translated the words into English. "Captain Morrison, we are honored to meet you. We bring greetings from the Zephyrian Coalition and hope this is the beginning of a long friendship." Jake extended his hand, a gesture he hoped would be understood as peaceful. Daiziska looked at the hand for a moment, then reached out and gently touched it with fingers that were longer and more delicate than human fingers. "We have brought gifts," Jake said, gesturing to the items his crew had prepared. "These represent the best of human culture: music, art, and knowledge." The aliens examined the gifts with obvious interest. They seemed especially fascinated by a recording of human music, tilting their heads as they listened to the complex rhythms and melodies. "Your culture is very energetic," Daiziska observed. "We find this interesting. Our own music is quite different." It played a sample of Zephyrian music. It was beautiful, but very calm, with slow, flowing melodies that seemed to have no sharp edges or sudden changes. "We have gifts for you as well," Daiziska said. "We would like to share our knowledge of agriculture and energy production. We believe these things might help your people." The cultural exchange continued for hours. The aliens showed remarkable interest in human history, asking many questions about how humans had developed their technology and spread across the galaxy. They seemed puzzled by some aspects of human behavior, especially stories about conflicts and wars. "Your species has experienced much struggle," Daiziska noted. "We find this difficult to understand. Why do humans fight each other?" Jake thought carefully about how to answer. "Sometimes we disagree about important things. Sometimes we compete for resources. We've learned to solve most problems peacefully. But it wasn't always that way." The aliens seemed to consider this. "We have not known conflict for many centuries. Our species learned long ago that cooperation is better than competition." As the meeting ended, Jake felt hopeful about the future. The aliens seemed genuinely friendly and interested in peaceful cooperation. But something in Dr. Hayes' expression made him wonder if there was more to learn about their new friends. "We look forward to learning more about each other," Jake said. As the aliens prepared to leave, "Perhaps some of our people could visit your world?" "We would welcome that," Daiziska replied. "We have much to show you about our civilization. We believe you will find it quite remarkable." As the alien ship departed, Jake stood on the bridge and watched it disappear into the darkness. Humanity had made contact with another intelligent species, and they appeared to be peaceful. It seemed like the beginning of a new age for both species. But Dr. Hayes was studying her readings with a troubled expression, and Jake had learned to pay attention when his science officer looked worried about something. 3 months had passed since the first meeting with the Zephyrians. The horizon's edge now orbited their home world, and the crew had learned much about their new alien friends. The Zephyrians had welcomed them with open arms, sharing their technology and culture freely. Jake Morrison walked through the ship's corridors, noting how much had changed. The walls now displayed Zephyrian art alongside human paintings. The food replicators had been programmed with alien recipes. Even the ship's computer had learned to speak some basic Zephyrian phrases, but something was bothering him. Dr. Lisa Hayes had been acting strangely for weeks, spending long hours in her lab and avoiding casual conversation. She claimed everything was fine, but Jake could see the worry in her eyes. He found her in the medical bay, staring at a screen full of genetic data. "Lisa, you've been working too hard. When's the last time you got some real sleep?" She looked up at him with tired eyes. "Jake, I need to show you something. Something about the Zephyrians that doesn't make sense." Jake sat down beside her. "What is it?" Lisa pulled up a complex genetic chart on the screen. "These are Zephyrian DNA samples. I've been studying them for weeks, and I've found something very unusual. I'm not a doctor, Lisa. You'll have to explain it in simple terms. Look at these markers," she said, pointing to specific sections of the genetic code. "These areas control aggression, fear response, and competitive behavior. In humans, these sections are very active. In the Zephyrians, they've been completely shut down." Jake frowned. "Maybe that's just how they evolved. Some species are naturally more peaceful than others." "That's what I thought at first," Lisa said. "But then I found this." She switched to a different screen. "These are older Zephyrian genetic samples, much older, from about 800 years ago." Jake looked at the new data. Even without being a scientist, he could see the difference. The older samples looked much more like human DNA, with active sections where the modern Zephyrians had blank spaces. "What does this mean?" he asked. "It means the Zephyrians weren't always peaceful," Lisa said quietly. 800 years ago, they had the same aggressive instincts that humans have. Someone or something changed them." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Changed them how?" "Genetic modification. Very advanced genetic modification. Someone removed their ability to feel aggression, fear, or competitive drive. They literally engineered the violence out of their species." Before Jake could respond, Ben Carter's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Captain, please come to the bridge. I've found something you need to see." Jake and Lisa hurried to the bridge. Ben was at his station, working with the ship's computer to decode what looked like an ancient transmission. "What is it, Ben?" Jake asked. "I picked up this signal buried in the Zephyrian communication networks," Ben said. "It's old, really old." The computer finally finished translating it. "What does it say?" Ben's face was pale. "It's a historical record, Captain, from 800 years ago. It talks about something called the Great Pacification." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Put it on the main screen." The ancient transmission appeared as text on the screen. Jake read it aloud. "The war leaders have agreed. The violence must end. Too many worlds have burned. Too many children have died. The gene builders promise they can remove the madness from our blood. We will be the first. When it is done, we will help others find peace as we have found peace." The bridge was silent. Jake read the message again, trying to understand what it meant. "There's more," Ben said. The computer found other records. "The Zephyrians used to be a warrior species, Captain. They conquered dozens of star systems. They were known throughout this part of the galaxy as fierce fighters. What happened to them?" Jake asked. "They modified themselves," Lisa said. "They removed their capacity for violence. All of it. They turned themselves into the peaceful species we know today." Jake thought about this for a long moment. The implications were staggering. "Do the Zephyrians know about this? About their history?" "I think they do," Ben said. "But they see it as a good thing. They're proud of what they did. They believe they saved themselves from destruction." "And maybe they did," Jake said. "Maybe they were destroying themselves with war, and this was the only way to survive." "Maybe," Lisa said. "But Jake, there's something else. I've been studying the genetic changes more carefully. The modifications didn't just remove aggression. They removed other things too." "What kind of things?" "Innovation, risk-taking, individual initiative. The Zephyrians can follow complex instructions. and maintain their technology, but they can't create new things. They haven't made any major technological advances in hundreds of years. Jake felt a growing sense of unease. You're saying they made themselves peaceful, but they also made themselves limited? That's exactly what I'm saying, Lisa replied. They traded their ability to grow and change for the ability to live in peace. Jake was about to respond when Daizeska's voice came through the ship's communication system. Captain Morrison, we would like to invite you and your senior officers to visit our world. We have something important to discuss with you. Of course, Jake replied. We'd be honored to visit. Excellent. We will send a transport for you in 1 hour. Please bring Dr. Hayes and Communications Officer Carter. This discussion concerns all of your species. The communication ended, leaving the three humans looking at each other with worry. Captain, Lisa said quietly, I don't think. This is a social visit. Neither do I, Jake replied. But we need to know what they want to discuss. Ben, prepare a complete copy of our research findings. Send it to Earth on a secure channel. Already done, Captain, Ben said. I sent it an hour ago. Jake nodded. Good thinking. Lisa, bring all your genetic data. I have a feeling we're going to need it. An hour later, they were aboard a Zephyrian transport ship, gliding smoothly toward the planet's surface. The alien pilot said nothing during the journey, but Jake noticed. The ship's course took them to a part of the planet they had never seen before. The transport landed at a large complex that looked different from other Zephyrian buildings. It was older, with sharper angles and more aggressive architecture. Jake realized they were looking at a structure built before the Great Pacification. Daizeska met them at the entrance, accompanied by several other Zephyrians that Jake had never seen before. These aliens seemed different somehow, more serious, more focused. Welcome, Captain Morrison, Daizeska said. We are honored by your visit. Please, come with us. There is much we need to discuss. They walked through corridors lined with ancient artwork. The images were shocking. They showed Zephyrian warriors in battle, their faces fierce and determined. They showed fleets of warships conquering other worlds. They showed the glory and the horror of the Zephyrian Empire. This is our history, Daizeska explained. Before the Great Pacification, we were a different people. We were strong, but we were also destructive. We nearly destroyed ourselves and many others. They entered a large chamber where dozens of Zephyrians waited. Jake realized he was looking at the leadership of their entire civilization. We have brought you here, Daizeska continued, because we have been studying your species for some time. We know about your history, your wars, your conflicts, your aggression. Jake felt his heart begin to race. We've learned from our mistakes. Humans are more peaceful now than we used to be. But you still carry the violence within you, another Zephyrian said. We can see it in your genetic code. We can feel it in your thoughts. You are like we once were. We are concerned, Daizeska said gently. Your species is spreading across the galaxy. You are encountering other civilizations. Your capacity for violence makes you dangerous. We don't want to be dangerous, Jake said. We want to be friends. We want to learn and grow together. We believe you, Daizeska replied. But wanting peace and being able to maintain peace are different things. We have a solution that could help both our species. Jake looked at Lisa and Ben. Both of them looked as worried as he felt. What kind of solution? Jake asked. We can help you as we helped ourselves, Daizeska said. We can remove the violence from your genetics. We can give your species the gift of true peace. The chamber fell silent. Jake felt like the air had been sucked out of his lungs. The Zephyrians were offering to change humanity at the genetic level, to make them peaceful like themselves. We would need to think about this, Jake said carefully. This is a very big Decision. Of course, the Izeska said. We understand. But Captain, we hope you will consider it seriously. The galaxy needs peace. Your species could be part of that peace if you choose to accept our help. As they flew back to their ship, Jake, Lisa, and Ben sat in stunned silence. The friendly aliens they had met were offering to change the very nature of humanity itself. They think we're dangerous, Lisa said finally. They're right, Jake replied. Humans can be dangerous, but we're also creative, innovative, and capable of great things because of our aggressive instincts. What are we going to tell Earth? Ben asked. Jake looked out at the stars. We're going to tell them the truth, and then we're going to let humanity decide what kind of species we want to be. The meeting hall on the Zephyrian homeworld was filled with representatives from dozens of different species. Jake Morrison had never seen so many different types of aliens in one place. Some were tall and thin, like the Zephyrians. Others were short and round. Some had fur, others had scales, and a few seemed to be made of something that looked like living crystal. But they all had one thing in common. When Jake looked into their eyes, he saw the same calm, peaceful expression that all Zephyrians had. The same lack of aggression or fear that Dr. Hayes had noticed in their genetic scans. Welcome, Captain Morrison. The ice is Ka, said from the center of the hall. We have gathered the leadership of the Zephyrian Coalition to meet with you today. What we discuss here will determine the future relationship between our peoples. Jake stood at a podium facing the assembled aliens. Dr. Hayes and Ben Carter sat behind him, both looking nervous. They had spent the last week preparing for this moment, but Jake still felt unprepared for what was coming. We appreciate the honor of addressing your coalition, Jake said. Humanity values the friendship we have built with your people, and we value your friendship as well, Daiziska replied. But friendship requires honesty. We must be honest with you about what we have learned about your species. A large screen appeared behind Daiziska, showing images from human history. Jake watched as scenes of human wars, conflicts, and violence played out before the alien audience. Every major war in human history was represented, from ancient battles to the conflicts that had shaped human expansion into space. Your species has a history of violence, another alien said. This one looked like a large bird with silver feathers. In your 3,000 years of recorded history, you have been at peace for less than 300 years total. That's not entirely fair, Jake protested. Those numbers include small conflicts and civil disputes. Humans have made great progress toward peace. Have you? Asked a third alien that resembled a walking tree. Your own ship carries weapons. Your colonies have military forces. Even your peaceful exploration vessels are armed. Jake felt his face grow warm. It was true. Human ships carried weapons for defense, and human colonies did have military forces. But that was just common sense, wasn't it? We carry weapons for protection, Jake said, not for aggression. We've learned that it's better to be prepared for danger than to be caught defenseless. But that is exactly our point, Iziska said gently. You think in terms of danger and defense. You prepare for conflict even when you seek peace. This is the violence that lives in your genes. The screen changed to show genetic comparisons. Jake recognized Dr. Hayes' work, but the aliens had gone much further with their analysis. They showed detailed comparisons between human genetics and the genetics of every species in the coalition. Every species in our coalition once carried the genes for violence, the Iziska explained. Some, like us, modified themselves. Others we helped to modify. The result is the peaceful civilization you see today. But at what cost? Dr. Hayes spoke up from behind Jake. You've also removed the genes for innovation, risk-taking, and individual creativity. Your species haven't made any major technological advances in centuries. We have stability, the bird-like alien replied. We have peace. We have harmony. These are more valuable than the chaos that comes from constant change. Our analysis of your species is complete, Daiziska said. We have studied your history, your genetics, and your behavior patterns. We have reached a conclusion about humanity's future. Jake felt his heart beating faster. What conclusion? Humanity represents a viral aggression pattern, the tree-like. Alien said, your species spreads quickly, adapts to new environments, and competes aggressively for resources. Left unchecked, you will eventually destabilize the entire galaxy. That's not true, Jake said. We're explorers, not conquerors. We want to learn and grow alongside other species. Your intentions may be good, Daiziska said, but your nature is dangerous. We have seen what happens when aggressive species spread across the galaxy. Wars that last for millennia. Entire civilizations destroyed. Billions of lives lost. So what are you proposing? Jake asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. We are offering you a choice. Daiziska said, humanity can accept our help in removing the violent genes from your species. We can give you the same peace that we have found. Your people would be welcome to join our coalition as equals. And if we refuse? The hall fell silent. Jake could feel the weight of hundreds of alien eyes watching him. If you refuse, Daiziska said sadly, then we will have no choice but to implement containment measures. We cannot allow a viral aggression species to spread unchecked through the galaxy. Containment measures? Jake asked. What does that mean? It means your species will be confined to your current territory, the bird-like alien explained. Any attempt to expand beyond your existing colonies will be met with force. You will be isolated until you either accept modification or your aggressive nature destroys you. Jake felt a chill run through him. You're talking about imprisoning the entire human race. We prefer to think of it as protecting the galaxy, Daiziska said. We take no pleasure in this decision, Captain Morrison, but we have a responsibility to maintain peace. How many species are in your coalition? Ben Carter asked from behind Jake. 47 species, the tree-like alien replied, representing over 3,000 star systems. We have ships, technology, and resources that far exceed anything your species possesses. Jake looked around the hall at the assembled aliens. Each one looked back at him with the same calm, peaceful expression. But behind that peace, he could see the iron determination of a species that had made its choice and would not be swayed. How long do we have to decide? Jake asked. 72 hours, Daiziska replied. We understand this is a difficult decision, but it is also a necessary one. And if we choose modification, what exactly does that involve? The process is painless. Another alien said. This one looked almost human, except for its blue skin and extra arms. We would work with your medical experts to develop a genetic therapy. It would be administered to your population over a period of years. Within a generation, humanity would be free from the burden of violent instincts. What about choice? Dr. Hayes asked. What if some humans don't want to be modified? The process would be voluntary at first, Daiziska said. But for the safety of the galaxy, it would eventually need to be universal. No human could be allowed to retain violent genetics. Jake felt sick. They were talking about changing the fundamental nature of humanity, about removing the very traits that had allowed humans to survive and thrive for thousands of years. We need to communicate with our government, Jake said. This decision is too important for us to make alone. Of course, Daiziska replied. We have already prepared a communication package for your leaders. It contains all of our research and our formal proposal. We hope they will see the wisdom of our offer. The meeting ended with formal pleasantries, but Jake could feel the tension in the air. As they were escorted back to their ship, he noticed that Zephyrian vessels had taken positions around the horizon's edge. They weren't being held prisoner, but they clearly weren't free to leave. Back on the ship, Jake called an emergency meeting of his senior staff. The conference room felt smaller than usual as they discussed what they had learned. "They're serious about this," Dr. Hayes said. "They really believe that human aggression is a threat to the entire galaxy." "Are they right?" Ben asked. "I mean, humans have fought a lot of wars. Maybe we are dangerous." "Every species fights," Jake replied. "It's how life survives. But we've also created art, music, literature, and science. We've explored space and reached out to other species in friendship. You can't separate the good from the bad and still be human. What will Earth say?" Dr. Hayes asked. Jake looked out at the stars. "I think I know what they'll say. But we need to be ready for whatever happens next." "Captain," Ben said quietly, "I've been monitoring Zephyrian communications. They're not just watching us. They're positioning ships near human colonies. They're getting ready to implement those containment measures. How many ships? Hundreds. Maybe thousands. They're calling it Operation Peaceful Harbor." Jake felt a weight settle on his shoulders. In trying to make contact with aliens, humanity had stumbled into the most dangerous situation in their history. The peaceful Zephyrians were prepared to go to war to preserve their version of peace. "Send the message to Earth," Jake ordered. "Tell them everything? And Ben?" "Yes, Captain." "Include the military codes. Command needs to know we might be facing a threat to all of humanity." As Ben worked at his console, Jake stared out at the alien ships surrounding them. Somewhere in the darkness, Earth was about to learn that their peaceful exploration had led to an ultimatum that could change the future of the human race. The Zephyrians had given humanity 72 hours to choose between modification and containment. But Jake was beginning to suspect that Earth's answer would create a third option that the peaceful aliens had never considered. Humanity had come in peace, just as they always did. But if their peaceful intentions were rejected, they had never promised to remain peaceful. The message from Earth arrived exactly 48 hours after Jake had sent his report. He stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge with his senior staff, watching the communication come through on the main screen. Admiral Kate Sullivan appeared. On the screen, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and her expression serious. Jake had served under her early in his career and knew that look meant trouble. "Captain Morrison," she began, "we have reviewed your report and the Zephyrian proposal. The answer is no. Humanity will not submit to genetic modification under any circumstances." Jake felt a mix of relief and fear. He had expected this response, but it meant they were now facing a war against an alliance of 47 species. "However," Admiral Sullivan continued, "we appreciate the complex situation you're in. We're authorizing you to continue diplomatic talks while we prepare for other possibilities." Jake noticed something in her tone. The way she said "other possibilities" carried weight. There was more to this message than appeared on the surface. "Captain," Admiral Sullivan continued, "please note that all human colonies are conducting routine training exercises over the next few weeks. These exercises are part of our standard preparedness protocols." Jake's eyes widened. Routine training exercises was code for military mobilization. Every human colony and military base was preparing for war. "We hope the Zephyrians will reconsider their position," Admiral Sullivan said. "But if they don't, humanity will defend itself with all necessary force." Sullivan out. The message ended, and Jake looked at his crew. They all understood what they had just heard. Earth was preparing to fight. "Ben, any word from the Zephyrians?" Jake asked. "They're requesting a meeting, Captain." They want to hear our formal response. Tell them I'll meet with thy Siska in 2 hours, and Ben, monitor all Zephyrian communications. I want to know what they're planning. Jake spent the next hour preparing for what might be the most important conversation of his life. He reviewed everything they knew about Zephyrian culture, their technology, and their military capabilities. The numbers were not encouraging. When he arrived at the meeting site on the Zephyrian home world, Jake found Thy Siska waiting with several other coalition leaders. The atmosphere was tense, very different from their previous friendly meetings. Captain Morrison, Thy Siska said, "We assume you have received instructions from your government?" "Yes," Jake replied. "Earth has made its decision. We appreciate your offer, but humanity must respectfully decline genetic modification." "We had hoped for a different answer," the bird-like alien said. "But we understand this is difficult for your species to accept. We're still hoping for a peaceful solution." Jake said, "Surely we can find a way to coexist without changing the fundamental nature of either species." "There is no middle ground," Thy Siska said sadly. "Your species cannot be allowed to spread their violent genetics throughout the galaxy. If you will not accept modification, then containment is the only option." "What exactly does containment mean?" Jake asked, though he suspected he already knew. "Effective immediately, all human ships will be restricted to systems you currently occupy," the tree-like alien explained. "Any attempt to expand beyond these boundaries will be met with force. Trade with other species will be limited to essential supplies only." "You're talking about a blockade," Jake said. "An act of war. We prefer to think of it as a quarantine," Thy Siska replied. "We take no pleasure in this action, but your species leaves us no choice." Jake stood up from the table. "I need to report this to my government. When does this containment begin?" "It has already begun," Thy Siska said. "Our ships are moving into position around your colonies as we speak. We hope this will convince your leaders to reconsider their position." Jake felt his anger rising, but he kept his voice calm. "And if it doesn't, then your species will remain contained until you either accept modification or your aggressive nature destroys you from within." The meeting ended with cold formalities. As Jake returned to his ship, he noticed that the Zephyrian vessels around them had moved closer and were now openly targeting the horizon's edge. "Captain," Ben said as soon as Jake reached the bridge, "I've been monitoring coalition communications. They're implementing something called Operation Peaceful Harbor. Ships are moving toward every human colony." "How many ships?" "Thousands. They're not taking any chances." Jake sat in his command chair and studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian coalition had superior numbers, advanced technology, and the advantage of surprise. On paper, humanity didn't stand a chance. "Ben, send a message to Earth. Tell them containment has begun. Use Priority Channel 7. "Yes, Captain." Priority Channel 7 was a military emergency code. It would trigger immediate responses from every human military unit in the galaxy. Jake hoped it would be enough over the next 6 hours. Reports came in from human colonies across space. Zephyrian ships had appeared in every system, demanding that human vessels remain in port. Most colonies complied, but a few were reporting that their ships were being forcibly stopped. "Captain," Dr. Hayes said, "I've been thinking about what we learned about the Zephyrians. They've been peaceful for 800 years. That's a long time to be out of practice with warfare." "What do you mean?" "They have advanced technology, but they've never had to use it for fighting. They think like scientists and diplomats, not soldiers. They might be more vulnerable than they appear." Jake was about to respond when Ben interrupted. "Captain, I'm getting a message from the Zephyrian command ship. They want to discuss terms for our surrender." "Our surrender?" Jake laughed grimly. "Tell them we'll consider discussing terms for theirs." "Captain, Ben said with surprise. "Are you sure that's wise?" "Ben, send the message exactly as I said it, and then open a channel to Earth on the emergency frequency." A few minutes later, Admiral Sullivan appeared on the screen again. This time she was in a military command center with status boards showing the positions of ships throughout human space. "Captain Morrison," she said, "we've received your reports. The situation is as bad as we feared." "Admiral, what are our options?" "We're implementing Protocol 7, she said simply. Jake felt a chill. Protocol 7 was humanity's most secret military plan. It had been developed decades ago for exactly this situation. What to do if humanity faced an existential threat from a superior alien force. "Admiral, are you sure?" "Protocol 7 means—" "It means we fight," Admiral Sullivan said firmly. "The Zephyrians made a critical error, Captain. They assumed that because we're aggressive, we must be primitive and disorganized. They've never fought a species that combines natural fighting instincts with advanced technology and military doctrine." Jake understood. The Zephyrians had spent 800 years without war. They had forgotten what real warfare looked like. They thought in terms of overwhelming force and diplomatic pressure, not strategic thinking and tactical adaptation. "What are my orders, Admiral?" "Continue diplomatic. Talks, but be ready to move fast when the time comes." "And Captain, the Zephyrians made another mistake. They're so focused on our ships and colonies that they've ignored our real strength." "Which is?" "Humanity doesn't just have ships and weapons, Captain. We have something they bred out of themselves. Centuries ago, we have the will to use them." The transmission ended, and Jake looked at his crew with new understanding. The Zephyrians had superior technology and numbers, but they had spent so long being peaceful that they had forgotten how to think like warriors. "Ben, what's the status of Zephyrian forces around our position?" 12 ships, Captain. "They're maintaining a loose perimeter around us, and they're all broadcasting on the same frequency, using predictable patrol patterns and following standard diplomatic protocols," Jake observed. "They're treating this like a police action, not a military operation." Dr. Hayes looked up from her station. "Captain, I've been analyzing their ship movements. They're being very careful not to cause any harm. Even when they've stopped human ships, they've gone out of their way to avoid casualties. They're still thinking like peacekeepers," Jake realized. "They want to contain us, not destroy us. That's going to be their weakness." Over the next 12 hours, Jake watched as the Zephyrian containment operation unfolded across human space. It was impressive in its scope and organization, but it was also predictable. The aliens were following standard procedures, broadcasting warnings, and giving humans time to comply with their demands. They were fighting like police officers, not soldiers. "Captain," Ben said suddenly, "I'm getting reports from the colonies. Something's happening." Jake looked at the communication display. Messages were coming in from human colonies throughout the galaxy, all saying the same thing. Routine training exercises were ending, and the results were surprising. "What kind of results?" Jake asked. "The Zephyrians positioned their ships to blockade our major colonies and trade routes," Ben explained, "but they ignored smaller outposts and research stations. Our training exercises have been mapping their positions and finding gaps in their coverage." Jake smiled for the first time in days. "They're thinking like diplomats, not tacticians. They've created a blockade that looks impressive but has holes everywhere." "Captain," Dr. Hayes said, "I'm also getting reports about Zephyrian behavior. Their crews are showing signs of stress. They're not used to mill." The war began not with a massive battle, but with a simple message broadcast across every human colony at the same time. Admiral Kate Sullivan appeared on screens throughout human space, her expression calm but determined. "Citizens of humanity," she said, 18 hours ago, An alien alliance called the Zephyrian Coalition attempted to imprison our entire species. They demand that we change our fundamental nature or remain trapped in our current territory forever. Jake Morrison watched. The broadcast from the bridge of the horizon's edge, still surrounded by Zephyrian ships. The alien crews had no idea what was coming. Our response is simple, Admiral Sullivan continued. Humanity came to the stars in peace, and we have always extended friendship to those we meet. But we will not be caged by those who mistake our peaceful intentions for weakness. Around the horizon's edge, Jake could see the Zephyrian ships maintaining their patrol patterns. They were still following their standard procedures, still thinking like police officers rather than soldiers. Effective immediately, Admiral Sullivan announced, Operation Broken Chain begins. To our friends among the stars, we offer continued peace and cooperation. To those who would imprison us, we offer a choice. Withdraw your forces and negotiate. In good faith, or face the consequences of underestimating humanity. The broadcast ended, and Jake waited. He knew what was coming, but the Zephyrians had no idea. At exactly the 18-hour mark, it began. Across human space, the routine training. Exercises that had been running for weeks suddenly revealed their true purpose. What the Zephyrians had thought were harmless military drills were actually the largest coordinated operation in human history. Jake watched on his tactical display as human ships emerged from asteroid fields, space stations, and hidden bases throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrians had been watching the obvious targets, the major colonies and trade routes, while humanity had been quietly positioning forces everywhere else. Captain, Ben Carter reported, I'm getting reports from across the sector. Human forces are engaging Zephyrian blockade units. How are we doing? Better than expected, sir. The Zephyrians seemed confused by our tactics. Jake wasn't surprised. The aliens had spent 8 centuries without war. They had forgotten that successful military operations required more than superior technology. They required the will to use that technology effectively. Captain, Dr. Hayes said from her station, I'm monitoring Zephyrian communications. Their crews are reporting high stress levels. Some ships are requesting immediate relief. They've been on station for less than 2 days, Jake observed. How are they going to maintain a blockade for years if they can't handle 2 days? The answer came quickly. Within 6 hours of the start of Operation Broken Chain, Zephyrian forces began withdrawing from isolated human outposts. They claimed they were consolidating their positions, but Jake could see the truth. They were retreating to more defensible positions because they couldn't maintain their extended blockade. Ben, any word from the Zephyrian command ship? Yes, Captain. Daiziska is requesting an immediate meeting. They want to discuss terms. Terms? Jake laughed. 12 hours ago, they were demanding our surrender. Now they want to discuss terms? The meeting took place aboard a neutral space station that both sides agreed upon. Jake arrived to find Daiziska and the other coalition leaders looking tired and confused. Captain Morrison, Daiziska said, we did not expect this level of resistance from your people. We told you we wouldn't accept imprisonment, Jake replied. Did you think we were lying? We thought your leaders would see reason, the bird-like alien said. Our forces are superior. Our technology is more advanced. Your resistance is futile. Is it? Jake asked. Your forces have been engaged for 12 hours, and you're already requesting relief crews. How long do you think you can maintain this level of operations? The silence from the coalition leaders told Jake everything he needed to know. They had planned for a quick victory, not a prolonged conflict. We have 47 species in our coalition, the tree-like alien said. Your species number's in the billions, but you are still outnumbered. Numbers don't matter if you can't use them effectively, Jake replied. And frankly, I don't think your coalition is as unified as you claim. What do you mean? Jake pulled up a display showing recent communications intercepts. We've been monitoring your internal discussions. 3 of your member species have already questioned the wisdom of this operation. 2 others have suggested that humanity should be given more time to consider modification. The coalition leaders looked uncomfortable. Jake continued his pressure. How many of your species actually want to fight a war? How many joined your coalition for peace and cooperation, not military conquest? This is not conquest, the Scifistories protested. This is protection. Your species threatens the stability of the galaxy. According to who? Jake asked. According to your computer models? According to your genetic analysis? Has any human ship ever attacked a coalition vessel? Have we ever threatened any of your people? Your capacity for violence is balanced by our capacity for reason, Jake interrupted. Yes, humans can be violent, but we're also capable of great creativity, innovation, and compassion. You want to remove the violence, but you'd also remove everything else that makes use human. Jake stood up and looked around the table at the assembled aliens. Let me ask you something. In the 800 years since your great pacification, what great works of art have your people created? What scientific breakthroughs have you achieved? What new ideas have changed your civilization? The aliens looked at each other uncomfortably. Jake pressed his advantage. You've achieved peace, but at the cost of growth. You've created stability, but eliminated progress. You want to do the same thing to humanity. Can we refuse? Your refusal could result in the destruction of both our civilizations, the bird-like alien said. Only if you choose to continue this pointless war, Jake replied. We came in peace, and we still prefer peace. But we won't be prisoners in our own home. Over the next 3 days, the military situation continued to develop in humanity's favor. The Zephyrian coalition had better technology, but they lacked the tactical flexibility and strategic thinking that came naturally to humans. More importantly, they lacked the stomach for a real fight. Captain, Ben reported during one of their daily briefings, coalition forces are pulling back from 7 more systems. They're claiming it's a strategic withdrawal, but our intelligence suggests their crews are refusing to continue combat operations. How many coalition species have withdrawn from the operation entirely? 6 so far. They're claiming they need to reevaluate their commitment to the containment protocol. Jake smiled. The coalition was fracturing exactly as he had predicted. Species that had joined for mutual defense and scientific cooperation were discovering they had no appetite for aggressive warfare. Captain, Dr. Hayes added, I've been analyzing the psychological profiles of coalition crews. Their genetic modifications make them excellent at following orders and maintaining peaceful societies, but they're terrible at adapting to unexpected situations or handling the stress of combat. They've made themselves into perfect citizens, Jake observed, but they've forgotten how to be soldiers. The end came not with a dramatic battle, but with a simple communication. Daiska appeared on the main screen of the horizon's edge, looking exhausted and defeated. Captain Morrison, the alien said, the Coalition Council has voted to suspend containment operations pending further discussion. Are you surrendering? Jake asked. We are, acknowledging that our approach may have been flawed. We would like to discuss alternative solutions to the question of human expansion. Jake felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The war was over, but it had shown him something troubling about both species. The Zephyrians had forgotten how to fight for what they believed in, while humans had proven once again that they were very good at fighting. We're willing to discuss alternatives, Jake said, but any solution must respect humanity's right to remain unchanged and to continue exploring the galaxy. We understand, Scifistories replied. Perhaps there is a middle path we have not considered. The Peace negotiations took place over several months. In the end, both species found a solution that neither had originally considered. Humanity would continue its expansion into space, but would establish clear protocols for contact with other species. The coalition would share their peaceful exploration methods with humanity, while humans would help the coalition develop better crisis response capabilities. Most importantly, both sides agreed to the principle that became known as the Terran Doctrine. Every species has the right to determine its own nature, free from outside interference. Jake Morrison returned to Earth as a hero, but he took no pleasure in the victory. The war had been necessary, but it had also shown him the fundamental difference between peace and pacification. True peace came from strength and choice, not from the removal of the capacity to fight. The Zephyrians had learned to stop fighting, but they had also lost the ability to defend what they valued. Humanity had chosen a different path. "We come in peace," Jake said in his final report to Earth Command, "but we come prepared to defend that peace if necessary." That's not a contradiction. It's the only way peace can survive in a universe full O.